Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us and welcome to the next instalment of our SEO Expert series of webinars. My name is Jeff, and this evening I'm joined by Patrick, co-founder of SiteBulb, and special guest Natalie Arney. Tonight we're going to be looking at internal linking. In a short while I'll hand you over to Natalie, who's going to give her insights on the best way to carry out internal link audits. But before I do that, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to Arish and the Women in Tech SEO community, who I believe are finishing up a workshop right now. But Arish introduced us to a few of the guests that we've been working with recently. So I just want to say thank you for that, as we've had some really good webinars. And of course, Natalie is one of those guest experts. So Natalie, for anyone that doesn't know you already, could you give a quick introduction to let everyone know who you are and what you're going to be covering this evening?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Natalie Arney. At present, I am a freelance SEO consultant. I've worked in-house and I've worked agency side for loads of different companies. And I'm going to be talking about internal links today. I think that I'm a little bit known with people that have worked with me about my passion for internal links. I like to get a little bit nerdy about them, just because they've got such a great there's such great opportunity with them. So yeah, this is an exciting one for me because I love a bit of internal linking.
Yeah, I think it's one of those areas that's really undervalued sometimes. We spent a lot of time on the link explorer within SiteBulb and doesn't get as much attention as we'd hoped some of the time.
Nope.
But it's something that I don't do enough of myself, but when you do, it's quite powerful. Be good to hear your thoughts on the best way to go about it. And on that note, if anyone has any questions for Natalie, we're going to try and fit them in at the end. So please drop them into the chat. If you add a queue to the start of them, that will make our lives easier. We'll be able to spot them because we've got quite a bit going on there. We're also going to make the recording available after the talk, so that'll all be there for everyone. Plus, Natalie's going to be doing a written guide for us, so with a bit more detail in there. So that will all be available at some point after this. I've talked enough now, so I'm going to pass you over to Natalie. I shall share your screen share and we shall disappear. I shall see you in a little while, Natalie.
Thanks. Hi everyone. So yeah, as we just discussed, I'm going to be going through some internal linking training. Now I call it training because it's exploring loads of different things to do with internal linking. And what I'm going to do is go through a lot of different ways to improve your internal linking on site. And I think that a big thing for me is that I wanted to get as much detail as I could in here, but as Jeff mentioned before, I've also created a guide that will go alongside this and hopefully answer some of the questions that you might have, and also recap some of the things that I'm going to briefly go over in a little bit more detail. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a former teacher, and whenever I run trainings, I always go through things that are aims and outcomes. So today with the training, you're going to know and understand what internal links are, why they're beneficial, and what issues can occur with regards to those internal linking. And also have an idea of the tools that you can use to perform an internal link audit, where you can find the internal link related sections with SiteBulb, how you can use data and information from tools to improve internal linking, and also how you can measure the impact of internal link changes. Now, obviously, we don't have enough time to go into loads and loads of detail, but what I wanted to do is give you quite a good overview on the different elements of internal linking, some basic issues, and obviously types of internal links. So let's go back to basics first of all. What are internal links? Obviously, in simple terms, they're links that go from one page to another on the same domain. So we've got here the home page, and then we've got child pages, maybe their category pages, and then additional child pages underneath. And there's lots of different types of internal link locations, so you can find those links in all different places. Now we've got navigational links, so places like main navigation, top navigation, drop downs, mega menus, faceted navigation, breadcrumb links. There's all kinds of navigational links. There's in content links, so things like anchor text links, and also there's image links. There's also footer links, internal search links, submission required form links, unparsable JavaScript links, iframe links, plugin links. There's so many different types of internal links. It's not just your standard navigational links and in content links. I also wanted to tell you about main and top level. Now, obviously, these two can be used interchangeably. I dip in and out of using different types, but you should be able to understand it. And obviously, how that navigation is structured also varies. So why are internal links beneficial? So they help users to progress through the site. When we're looking at site side, so us SEOs and developers, internal links establish a hierarchy of information on the website. They are the core driver behind topic cluster and hub and spoke model of content structure. They give the ability to group and silo content, indicate page importance. They can pass equity around the website and also help content to be discovered. And then on the search engine side, internal links help to discover new content and content changes. From big old Google, they say that Google must constantly search for new pages and add them to its list of known pages. Some pages are known because Google's already crawled them before, but other pages are discovered when Google follows a link from a known page to a new page. And that applies to not just internal links, but obviously external links as well. Now, I'm going to give you a little insight into my mind. It's only a little bit of my mind, but a lot of people seem to think that I use this quite a lot, and it's quite a good analogy. So the way I see internal linking is akin to a London tube map. So navigating around a site, whether you're a user, whether it's a bot, is like going to a destination that you need to get to. If there's something in the way, your journey will see some kind of change. So you either find another way or you give up. For example, at the weekend, I was visiting my friend in London. I needed to meet her in Hackney, and I was going from Liverpool Street. However, it's the weekend, it's London, it's hot. The central line was down. I then had to replan my whole journey, or I could give up. I chose to replan my journey, but obviously, we don't want users or bots to give up. Hence why internal linking issues, they need to be dealt with. So let's have a think about what can go wrong with internal links. There's loads and loads of different things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on each of these different issues. So there's things like broken internal links, redirect chains, link depth. There's loads of different things that can be there. And I also wanted to touch on the fact that there's also ring fencing for developers. So, for example, there's lots of different issues that can happen if you're a consultant or you're agency side, or even if you're in-house. If there's some kind of ring fencing or way to get developers time, obviously you need to kind of figure out how to deal with these issues, but we'll get onto that later. Let's go through what can go wrong. So first of all, the big one, the one that we all know, broken internal links. So putting it simply, they're those links that point to sources that aren't found on the site. They can be there for loads of different reasons, but the most common one is when a page returns a 404, or there's a misspell in the URL within the link. So say you're adding a link to a blog post, you accidentally misspell, there's your broken internal link. Obviously, they're quite easy to fix, and fixing them is a great housekeeping task, as you'll go from not passing on equity to passing it on to another page. And then we've got links to redirected pages. So this is another one of the most common ones that I find. So when a page is redirected, it points to the old page, then the new page, and the 301 redirects are permanent, 302 are temporary. But both of these are the most common redirect types. Obviously, we see things like 307 and meta refresh redirects, but most of the time it's those 301s and 302s. What I find is that when passing on link equity, when you've got a redirect in a way, I see it as a soft barrier. And what I mean by this is that redirects pass on that equity, but it's also known that those redirects can often decrease the amount of equity passed from one page to another, which leads us on to the next thing, redirect chains. Now, these can be the bane of any SEO's life, but they can also be great. They can also be really helpful because it's a nice simple fix, or should be. So redirect chains are where one page redirects to another page, which then redirects to another page, potentially another page, and so on and so on and so on. They can cause lost link equity because not all equity is passed through a redirect. And then if you consider that each time that there's a redirect, you lose equity, you want to keep the chains as short as possible to be able to pass on as much equity as possible as well. And then also link equity passing aside, redirect chains can also increase page load time. They can delay crawling and cause search engine spiders to just give up or get stuck in a spider trap, which is not what we want. Another one, especially with sites that I work on at the moment, so working on classified and e-com, orphan pages are immense in numbers. They're pages on a site that have no links to them. So it could be that an ad is listed on a listing site, or it might be that a new product is added to an e-commerce platform. This means that users and search engines often cannot find a page that has no links to it. And you can face it not being crawled, not being indexed, not being ranked, obviously then not getting the traffic. So whenever you create new content, you should always ensure that there's at least one link to this new content, whether that's from a blog homepage, an important landing page, a PLP, an article. It could be from lots of different places, but it's really, really important that if you want a page to rank, you shouldn't just rely on, number one, the sitemap, and number two, external links. Make sure that these pages have got internal links to them as well. And then links to unimportant pages. So when the idea of page quality and relevance started to get more important, so did the idea of linking to those quality relevant pages. There's little to no point in linking to unimportant pages and losing that link value to those pages. Obviously, Google's getting more and more intelligent over time, and it can ignore links to those irrelevant pages. However, is it still worth linking to those pages if they're not relevant? Is it still worth linking to those pages if they're not relevant? They're not going to help the user. Is there any point in linking to them? It's something that you really need to consider. Obviously, you want to avoid those orphan pages, but at the same time, is that page important? Do you want to get rid of it? If it's not going to help the user, is it worth linking to, and is it worth having on your site? And then this isn't a fully a link issue, but it's an information architecture issue as well. And it can help with regards to things like content discovery. So you might want to link to orphan pages, but they could be nested so deeply within the information architecture of a site that Google and other search engines might deem that page to be unimportant, might not crawl them often, might struggle to rank that page. So say, for example, you've got a site that's 10 levels deep, and you've got some pages on the 9th level that only have one link to them, and you want to improve it. It is a pain. What you can do about it, especially if you think that that page is important, is if that page is more than 3 levels from the home page, move that page up. Move it up the information hierarchy. That way that the content's seen as more important by Google and other search engines, and hopefully linking to that page should pay off better. Now, that's not always the case, but it's really important to make sure that that is a consideration. Obviously, there's other content discovery tips as well. So things like refreshing your content building external links and sharing on social, but it's always worth considering the depth of that link and the depth of that page and why you're actually linking to it. And then this is one that I know that a lot of us have seen. I'm sure you've seen those pages packed full of those keyword-rich anchor text links. The content reads spammy, the links are irrelevant. What's the point of having that page? What's the point in having all of those links? Google's just going to see that as spammy. They're going to see it as an overuse of internal links. And if that's happening on your site, your client's site, get that sorted and get it sorted fast. On our side, it's a nice, pretty quick win, and you can ensure that the correct pages are linked to rather than something more random. It's a win-win. Now, I love seeing this kind of page in the wild. So if you've got an example of it, please make sure to tweet me or DM me on Twitter, because like I said, I love seeing it. And also, I also love seeing the impact of this once someone's actually cleaned up and made some alterations to a page that has got a spammy overuse of internal links. They've cleaned it up, they've cleaned up the content, and you're reaping the rewards. I love to see it, so please share it with me. And then this is one that we often see as well, especially when auditing sites. We've all seen those human error mistakes where you've got / or non-trailing / standard, and you've got a number of links to the incorrect version of the URL. Obviously, that means that you're experiencing some content duplication through inconsistent interlinking. Now, depending on the platform that your site's built on, any rules that you might have in place, you might have this fixed, but more often than not, this is not the case. You're facing that duplication just from a rogue link. It could be just human error. Now, obviously, this is quite a quick fix. Remove those links, redirect those duplicates to the page that you want to keep, double whammy. So you're improving your internal linking and you're getting rid of that duplicate content. And then this one often goes hand in hand with the overuse of internal links. It's poor use of anchor text. So as we all know, anchor text is the copy used to place a link from one page to another. If the anchor text you use is over-optimized, so say your keyword stuffing, that could be damaging. Or on the other side, if you under-optimize your anchor text, such as just using the word here to link, which we all know and we've all seen, this could be damaging too. So how do you decide on what to use? Have a think about the keywords the page that you're linking to either ranks for now, or the page you want to rank, you want that page to rank for, and then find a natural place in the copy to link from. Have a think, does the copy read naturally, and does the link that you're going to add or have added made sense? If you were a user, would you click on it with that anchor text? If so, you're all good. Now, this one is a JavaScript issue only, but I think it's really worth touching on this, since more and more sites are using JavaScript, and JavaScript recognition from Google and other search engines is evolving. And also, the Sitebulb has actually got a tool within the hint function to help you to find this. So if you've ever worked with JavaScript, you might have seen a link with an on-click attribute. What happens here, or what should happen here, is that when a user clicks that link, the user's sent to that page. However, search engines can still struggle with following those JavaScript links. So that link isn't always great for SEO. It's only good for the user and their journey. As I mentioned, if you use Sitebulb and the site uses this kind of link anywhere, you'll see a reference to this as an insight in your links hints, meaning that it isn't necessarily that the action is taken, but it's something that you could consider. It could be a nice quick win for you to change that JavaScript link to an HTML link and go from there. But it's really, really handy. If you see that there are issues with that page that you're linking to and you want to increase the number of links to that page, that's where this could be an issue. And nofollow internal links. Now, we all know that nofollow links don't often pass on full page equity, but in September 2019, Google did state that rel equals nofollow is a hint rather than a directive. For those of us building external links, this was great news, but in terms of internal links, there wasn't much change. If nofollow still functions the same for on-site SEOs, then why would we change anything? From my point of view, I would say that this is all about ensuring the correct tagging is still used, but also ensuring that the right pages are handled in the right way. And if you don't want to link to a page for SEO, but still want to help the user, are you doing the right thing? So always, I constantly reiterate, if you're doing the right thing for the user, if you put the user first, you put their considerations in first, you're usually doing the right thing paired with best practice for SEO. So how can you use internal links strategically? We've seen the issues. Now it's time to have a think about using those internal links strategically. There's obviously ways to solve those internal linking issues, such as broken links, redirect chains, redirected links, orphan pages, all of those different reasons. You can also use internal links for supporting link building activity, and also looking at content, supporting content with sensible use of anchor text. And then there's lots of different tools that you can use to audit internal links, including Sitebulb, Screaming Frog, Ahrefs, SEMrush, Deepcool. There's so many different tools out there. So let's get a little bit more practical. Now, I can't show you everything to do with internal link auditing today, but I can show you some top-level linking audits using Sitebulb, and I can give you links to guides later on, which will help you with different internal linking issues and improvements. I'm also happy to help with questions about internal linking, and can also provide training for individuals and teams if necessary. As I mentioned, Sitebulb is sponsoring this training. It's a Sitebulb training, but I also have featured with the training in the past other tools as well, just in case you don't have access to this tool. However, check out Sitebulb's 30-day trial, because you can always see if you like it. So things that you can check with Sitebulb's link tool include orphan pages, pages with suboptimal number of internal links, broken links, links to redirect, follow and no follow links, finding pages with the most links, finding where the links are located in the content itself, which is one of my favorite parts of the Sitebulb's link tool, finding internal link anchor text, seeing problem areas with hints, and so much more. I love the hints function because it can help you find those pesky on-click links, for example, as well. So that's really great if you're just getting used to JavaScript sites, or if you're short on time. So let's have a look and see about the crawl visualization. Now, structure is important. You can see that we've got on the left-hand side, we've got a poor site structure, and on the right-hand side, we've got a beautiful structure. Now, on the left-hand side is Yanni Papayannou, one of my former colleagues. He shared this on Twitter a while back of an example using Sitebulb to look at the internal linking structure of a site. And on the right-hand side, it is an example that Marie Haynes shared. Now, I think these are both really great examples of showing you what Sitebulb can show you with regards to internal links. And also you can examine link flow with Sitebulb. So, for example, these are orphan pages and pages with a suboptimal amount of links. You can also find broken links and links to redirects with this little handy bit here. So you can see all of the different statuses of URLs and whether they've got broken links, redirects, etc., etc. You can also find the pages with the most links. So again, we've got by the part of the depth in the information architecture, and you can see here, for example, that the home page has got 81 page and it's 81 to 100 internal links. And then we've got, as we go down further into the information architecture, it should kind of match the amount of links. However, you can see that we've got one depth 3 link here that hasn't got a link at all. So we can go in and fix that. Really nice and easy, gives you a great overview. It's something that you can quickly show stakeholders or people within your team, or account managers can communicate this with clients. And you can also find out where those links are located in the content itself. Now, I love this because it shows me exactly where those links are. You can find out whether they're in the footer, whether they're in the content, all over the place. You're able to find, investigate, route deeper, but this is a great overview to help you with things like benchmarking, planning, communicating with internal and external teams, and obviously showing your progression as well. And this is what I love about being able to use tools with really handy dashboards. And you can find internal link anchor text. So you can find out here how long the words are in the anchor text. You can rank it from longer tail to shorter tail. You can find out which pages have got the most links, which keywords have got the most links. Really, really helpful. And as I keep going on about, this hints function is one of my favorite things about Sitebulb, is that you can navigate through the links and you can find critical, high, medium, low level, different kinds of insights. It's really, really handy for you to kind of explore all of the issues that you might encounter with internal linking. Now, I don't want to give too much information on competitors, so I won't show you how to use other tools for examining internal links, but I wanted to show you again how you can examine internal links with Google Search Console as well. So you can see, you can find out the top internally linked pages and go from there. So instead of URL, what I've done there is I've just covered up the client's URLs, but you can rank from top to bottom or vice versa, and see which pages have got the most internal links, obviously external as well. But it's really, really handy if you want to have a look in Google Search Console and align that with some of the tools that you've been using as well. So how can you use link opportunities? There's three main processes that I use: semi-automated, manual process, and Power Pages. The latter two are methods I'd recommend the most, but you might find your own way of doing it too. And then the top can be great if you're short of time or if you're giving the work to someone else to work through. So say you're a manager and you're delegating to someone in your team, or you might be a consultant or an agency side, giving some work to someone who is on the in-house side. Now, I know that depending on the site, the content and the pages that we're looking at linking to and from, the method would vary. And then obviously Ahrefs as well has got an internal linking recommendations tool that you could have a quick glance at too. So going through the manual process, what I do here is make sure that I've got my URLs and I've got my target keywords. I would then use Google Site Search to find mention of those keywords on existing pages, add links from those existing pages to the target page, and repeat. So you can see it's quite manual, it can be quite long-winded. Here's where the semi-automated method comes in, and here's where you can use Sitebulb. So you can make sure that you've got your URLs and target keywords. You can find related keywords to your target keyword set as well. So usually I use Also Ask and keywordtool.io for those. And then use Sitebulb or your other crawler of choice to find mentions of your target keywords and related keywords with custom search functionality, and then work through those lists, adding those links. And then Power Pages. So this is where you find the most powerful pages on your site. You can use this with using tools such as SEMrush, Ahrefs, etc. Add your relevant links as and when possible from those powerful pages to your target page using that relevant anchor text link. Sometimes it can be difficult on this side because you might not find any relevant pages to link from. However, when you're able to, there's good opportunity because these pages are strong. These pages are your most powerful pages on your site. And it's a great way to use if the manual and semi-automated ways have found nothing relevant for you to link from. There's also another way that you can use if you're on a WordPress site, but I don't really recommend it. So that's using WordPress plugins. Obviously, I don't really recommend it because it can get quite spammy, it can slow down a site, and it's obviously only applicable for those people using WordPress. But what you could do is you could combine the first two methods with the use of specific internal linking plugins such as Link Whisper or SEO Autolinker to find and add those internal linking opportunities. Now, I'm far from keen on this method, but it might help some people who are really stuck or you're really short of time and the site's a WordPress one. Obviously, there's lots of risks to think about though, especially if you remove the plugin, as there's risk of those links being removed and then you have to fix it all. It can get quite messy. And then, as I mentioned, Ahrefs have got an internal linking tool. What they do is they're combining their ranking data with content scraping. I found it quite patchy, but it depends on on your site and what you can find with those other ways. But if those other ways don't help, you can always use this and see if there are any opportunities to add those valuable internal links. And then the big one, so measuring the impact of internal links. We can find the issues, we know how to fix those issues, and we have an estimated timescale, but often there's some red tape in the way. Whether you're agency side, in-house, a consultant, there's often red tape. With internal links, sometimes the smallest changes obviously can make a lot of difference. And it's a great way to increase indexation, ranking, traffic, and conversions. Well, as mentioned before, internal links can pass on page rank and equity to a site. And if you're removing this roadblock, the equity can be passed on. So it's said, for example, that each redirect chain loses 15 to 20% of equity per redirect. And you can see why this can become an issue, especially when you're linking from power pages or building links to an origin page. That's great, but obviously we can say all these things, we can find those issues, but we then have stakeholders, we have managers, we have directors, we have CMOs asking us why we need to get these things done and what's the worth of doing that. So how do we prove that worth? Now, being able to quantify those changes isn't a spot on science, but here's one of the ways that you could do it. If you're able to find an example of a page where you've added an internal link, grab the data before that link was added, and then again when a link was added from another page, or on the other hand, when it was removed, because you can always reverse engineer. Is there a clear difference between that before and after? What is that difference? What is the ranking change? What is the traffic difference? And what's the impact on conversions and money? Now apply that scenario to the pages that you're targeting with internal links. Remember to be more conservative with that data if you can, especially if you've got a client that holds you to account for not matching your expected figures. Now, we've all been there. They're not an ideal client at all, but needs must. Of course, this will depend on a few factors, such as things like the page in the link sequence might have acquired an external link, might have had a content refresh. It's really, really important to keep that in consideration and also use a page when you're looking to prove the link. Use a page that's less likely for that to happen to. Also keep in mind things like seasonality, days of the week, demand changes, so that your data is as accurate as possible. If you're not able to do this, then things are a little bit more tricky and it's a little bit more finger in the air, modeling scenarios where you model the data for an increase and decrease in ranking, what that means for traffic, what that means for conversions, and obviously the monetary value. And obviously this doesn't just apply to internal linking changes, but other SEO changes as well. If you come to the conclusion with your business case, make sure that you do the following. You use the metrics that matter, whether that's conversions or money or anything that affects the bottom line, and make sure to focus on that outcome. Most stakeholders won't want to know the intricate details of all of those changes. They're not going to want to know, they're not going to want to learn. They just want to know how it impacts the bottom line, how much of your time it will take, how much of other people's time it will take, and how long it will take to start to see impact. Now, obviously that's a little bit harder for us, but we can always refer to the Google Hangout with John Mueller, where he quoted, I think it's 3 to 6 months, etc., etc. So we can kind of fingers in the air, figure out how long it will start to see impact. Or if you've worked with a client before or worked on the site before and made similar changes, you can always refer back to that old time scale. A good one for that is making sure that you can add your notes in your Google Analytics, so that when you've seen those changes, you know exactly when you did it and you can measure that impact. So my top internal linking tips are as follows. I would say that you should monitor internal linking changes by using site crawls. Make changes as soon as you can. Don't put all of your navigation links in the footer. That's very 2012. Ensure your anchor text link isn't spammy. Use business cases to get that client and stakeholder buy-in. Make sure that you work alongside other teams if needed. So the link building team, developers, UX, CRO, make sure that you work alongside those teams, because sometimes those roadblocks might come from external teams, or you might be doing something that gets in the way of their work. Don't overdo it with on-page links, and use markup to enrich specific internal linking. So for example, breadcrumb linking. Make sure that you use keyword research and Google Analytics, because they're invaluable resources which are often neglected when you're looking at internal linking. So for example, Power Pages, looking at anchor text. And when you acquire new links from digital PR and link building, make sure that the link sources have internal links to those relevant pages. What we don't want is, we don't want to get some really great links built to a link source, and then, or a piece of content, and then that piece of content doesn't link to the pages that we want to improve ranking for. It kind of defeats the object and makes everyone's lives a little more harder, because the link building team can't prove their worth, and then obviously you don't get the benefit of those really nice links that have been built. So let's go back to those aims and outcomes. Hopefully what we've done here is to help you know and understand what internal links are, why they're beneficial, and the issues that can occur with regards to internal linking. And you've got an idea of some of the tools you can use to perform internal linking audit, where you can find the internal linking sections with Sitebulb, how you can use data and information from tools to improve internal linking, and also how you can measure the impact of internal linking changes. Thank you so much, everyone. Obviously, some of you or most of you know where I am on Twitter, I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can drop me an email as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Natalie. That was great. I actually just got comfortable sitting watching the talk myself. Needed again. We've got quite a few questions in the chat. There's been a lot of discussion going on there, so that's great.
Cool.
While I dig a few of them out, could you tell people about your talk tomorrow? You're going to be speaking Brighton SEO, aren't you? Yeah,
so I've got Brighton SEO talk. It's at, I think it's 12:45 on Friday. And what I'm going to be talking about is the difference between, or what makes the most impact, whether it's link building, technical SEO, or content. And yeah, it's something that's really close to my heart, especially as someone that's kind of led a marketing team and led an SEO team and had to figure out what makes the most impact. Obviously, some people were tech specialists or link building specialists or content specialists, and they might not understand the full picture. And it's mainly about the ways, the intersection of all of those different things, and how they can help each other and obviously help you.
Great. I think I said tomorrow. It's not tomorrow, is it? Is it?
Friday, yeah.
Friday.
It's Wednesday today, Joe.
Yeah, it does feel like a Thursday.
One to watch anyway. Right, I'm going to start grabbing some questions. So first up, it's often easy to find places on a page to link to blogs and secondary content, but I've heard it's best to have the majority of internal links pointing to parent pages or pillar pages. Is this true? I'm trying to get my head around the question first off there. What do you reckon, Natalie?
I would say, so the question is that obviously it's really easy if you're writing a blog post to link from a blog post to a product page, and vice versa. But obviously when you're looking at things like parent pages and pillar pages, Nick's saying there that he's heard that it's best to have the majority of internal links pointing to those parent and pillar pages, and whether that's true or not. I don't want to say it depends, but when you're looking at the hub and spoke theory with regards to obviously content grouping, it is that when you're using hub and spoke and content pillars, then usually the child pages of that hub page will link back to that hub page anyway. So naturally there will be those links from that group of content. I would say that depending on the content that you're grouping together, the topic of those pages, and the other issues that you're facing on the site, I think those things are more important than saying that, oh, this is a hub page, it needs more internal links. And usually a hub page or a pillar page is also higher up in the information architecture as well. So in theory, it would be crawled more frequently than, say, a product description page. So it is a strange one, but I would say that naturally they should have more links anyway. And things like PLPs should have more links anyway, because it's easier to link to them, akin to blog pages. But if you're finding that it is an issue, I would look at those child pages first of all and see, are there any opportunities and avenues that you can link from additional child pages? It might be from another hub or another spoke page. There's lots of different ways to do that, but I wouldn't say that it's true or false.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to what you were saying earlier on about just working out what your priority pages are, where you want to pass that value to. Yeah, definitely. Got one from Suganthan here. So, anchor text over optimization. So, Gary of Google, I assume, apparently has said that anchor text optimization isn't an issue as of 2019. Is that still what you think's the case, or have you seen any changes in the last couple of years?
I think number one, anything that Gary says. Now I'm a John girl. I think anything that Gary says could be a wind up, because he loves to joke and wind people up. But also, obviously, it will depend on the user and the obviously how they're progressing through your content. If your piece of content makes no sense because you've got so many spammy anchor text links and you're using anchor text that doesn't make sense, then that's where the issue lies, rather than constantly using keyword rich anchor text. So I think there's a difference between creating those anchor texts, keyword rich anchor texts for SEO, and creating those links for the user. And I would always put the user first, and look at everything from a user point of view. If it makes sense to link using that anchor text, then do so. If it doesn't make sense and it reads as spammy, don't do it.
Yeah. I think that's always a good rule of thumb with a lot of stuff in SEO. If it doesn't make sense, then you've probably gone too far.
Yeah.
Got one from someone here.
I love this topic, though.
So important and unimportant pages. I would say when looking at important and unimportant pages, I think it's whatever you're looking at that time. So a lot of the time I work on projects where we want to increase ranking or build out certain parts of the site, or it might be that you've undertaken an audit and you're looking at the pages that are important or unimportant. Now, there's different ways of doing that, because obviously there's different parts of SEO. I usually consider an important page a page that ranks well and a page that's useful for a user. But there could also be important pages in terms of pages that might not always be useful for a user, but they're good for link acquisition. And so I look at them in different phases. So it could be important for link acquisition. It could be important for helping a user. It could be helpful within the user journey. So it could be a conversion page or a close to conversion point, or even a post sales piece of information. I always look at what that piece of content is, and then that usually shows me the importance. Yeah, but it really does vary in terms of the project that you're working on, what your focus is, because sorry, carry on.
So do you have a lot of like back and forth with the client to determine what these are in terms of what that focus is, and therefore what tools you might use and what metrics you're looking at?
Not often. What I usually do is group all of the information together just to get a educated overview, because I think it's always important to look at all of as many elements of a page as you can. So whether that's the amount of traffic, whether that's the backlinks, whether that's the number of position 1 to 3 keywords, what the keyword relevancy is, what the relevancy of the keywords and the content are. There's so many different variables, and I think it's really important to kind of look at a piece by piece or a project by project basis. And then if you're looking at a wider scope of things, it's obviously, your standard, dependent on the KPI. So if you're looking to increase the number of keywords and the amount of traffic that a page is going to rank for, then obviously you're going to prioritize or say that those important pages are those pages that have got a high amount of keywords, that have got a great click-through rate, that have got a great bounce rate, that have got a great amount of organic traffic to them.
Cool. And so the unimportant pages as well, do you have a process for them, or is that?
Usually it's the opposite to the important pages. There could be pages that might not be important for SEO, but they might be important for other channels. And I always try and factor that in as well if I'm able to. Because I think a lot of SEOs disregard things like, say, it's a referral link, or a page that's got a lot of referral traffic, or that it's a PPC landing page, or that it's a social landing page. I think it's really important to kind of factor that in as well and see whether that page holds any value, and whether you can actually help it from an SEO point of view.
Yeah. Like, could it also do more than what it's doing?
Yeah. Thinking about the multiple functions of the content rather than just for SEO.
Awesome. Love it.
Right, I've got one from Simon now. So this is one I find quite interesting, because this came up a short while ago when I was writing a piece of content with Wayne Barker. He was producing about orphan pages, and we got onto the topic of when orphan pages aren't orphan pages. So would you consider a page with only a link from the sitemap an orphan?
I usually do, just because a lot of the sites that I work for or work with often auto-generate their sitemaps. So any piece of content that's uploaded to a site would be included on that sitemap, unless I ask for them to obviously remove it. So yeah, from my point of view, I usually would see that if it has a link in the sitemap, but it doesn't have any additional links, then I would still consider it as an orphan page. But it obviously would depend on the kind of site that you're working on, and how the sitemaps are actually managed, because obviously you can remove and add pages to and from sitemaps and move them around, sort out priorities. There's so many elements that you can change with sitemaps. But yeah, what I usually do is see them as an orphan page.
That, by the way, that's what Sitebulb will do as well. Sitebulb will recognise that as an orphan. So we agree.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, because if you haven't got anything within your site pointing to it, then it's not going to get any authority. So it's as good as, even if technically there's a link.
Yeah, and a user can't see a user doesn't often see a sitemap. Only bots will see the sitemap, or an SEO or developer will see a sitemap. But if you're putting the user first, they're not going to find that link.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to read this question, so I'm just going to chuck it up and take it from there. Right.
Another one that I have to move.
Oh, this is a good
Hi,
one.
Patrick. Would you use anchor text differently per country? For example, in the US, bloody nose isn't derogatory, but in the UK it is. Do you base the anchor text based off the country the website is targeting?
I would, if you're always basing your content on the country the website's targeting, then yeah, base the anchor text based on that as well. If you're going to localize the content, do it for all of the content, including your anchor text link, because you don't want some rogue random, say you're on a site for sneakers and then you add in trainers and you link to trainers. People in non-British English countries aren't going to understand trainers, for example. It reads well, it doesn't function well. You might be trying to get the page to rank for trainers as well, but usually that's going to be minimal. So yeah, I'll always consider the country, especially if it's keyword reach anchor text, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense and your user's going to get confused.
I think it goes deeper than that as well, because I mean, if you really want to be targeting the keywords that people are looking for in that country as well, so it asks the question, why would you be using that? Why would you be optimizing for that in the first place? So yeah, no, I know that we agree on all these, I think. I've slipped a question in of my own I wanted to put across. So you talk a lot about all different types of internal links and different areas and different sort of scenarios. Is there a particular one that you find on like a lot of sites that you work with usually offers a good opportunity?
I think when you're looking at things like e-commerce sites, I would always look at the top level navigation and mega menus. Obviously, they can be used in lots of different ways. So, for example, if you're running a sale and you want to promote a sale, you can always use it in that drop-down menu, or you can use it in a drop-down mega menu. So that's a great way to get eyes on that content, and also you're looking at those navigational links that obviously get crawled more often than, say, an anchor text link in a blog post that gets crawled maybe every other week. When you're looking at something like the top level navigation, usually they get crawled more often. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to add things, especially on seasonality, I would add it to things like the mega menu or a drop down. Think sites like Marks and Spencer's and ASOS use that really well. The issue comes when you're adding that link just for a really short amount of time. Is it worth adding it? Is enough value being passed on? Is it enough to just have an influx of, I don't know, 20,000, 25,000 links to a page that's then going to get removed? It's worth considering those. So I would say, yeah, e-commerce side, there's obviously loads of opportunities there. And then again, it would depend on the quality of the content that you're looking to link from and link to, with regards to different types of internal links for other sites or other parts of the site. But things like getting rid of redirect chains offer so much value just because they're so quick to solve. Although saying that, I did have a client once who, a financial institution, lots of ring fencing involved, and their internal teams were charged per redirect change from the central development team. So then what we had to do is prioritize the redirect chain fixes by the outcome, so that the team could prioritize that and spend the least amount of money that they could. And apologies to everyone about the noise that's going on, because there's an ice cream van outside my house, just in case you hear anything weird.
I thought I was getting pounds for ice cream there. Subliminal messaging. Right, well, I've just realised we're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to try and grab a couple of questions. First off, Simon, it's Patrick. And this is another one that I came across when doing some content the other day. What do you think about using HTML sitemaps?
I think test them. If you think that there's an opportunity to use one, and that you can create one that you feel is going to be useful for the user and that they're going to use it, test it. You can always, it's just one page, and you can test it out for different parts of the site. I would give it a month or so to actually get traffic to that page, and make sure that you include it in places like your footer links, just so that people actually can find it. Because I think having an HTML sitemap is quite useful for a user, but I don't find that it helps crawlability as much as placing links on other parts of a site. I find it's kind of like an old-fashioned way of doing it now, and that in the past, when I first started in SEO, every site seemed to have an HTML sitemap, whereas now it doesn't always help. So I would say, yeah, if you think that if you think it might have an impact, test it out and see. But obviously you need the traffic to that page to test it out as well, and that you need to have that page crawlable, for bots to find that page as well, and keep an eye on it. So set up a potential testing environment and monitor it closely and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then remove it and use it as a learning opportunity. But obviously it shouldn't take up too much time or too much effort when you're testing something like that, because a lot of the time it wouldn't have so much of an impact. But if it's useful for the user and the user will use it, and it shows an increase in crawling and indexability, then you've proven yourself that it does work.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Right, so one last question, and then we better tie things up. So similar to that last one, I suppose, in terms of techniques, what are your thoughts on using sidebars? Very specific in terms of how many links to have in them. So talking about service pages, blog posts, and informational pages. I suspect this might be it depends.
Yeah, I hate using that. I think really if you're using sidebars on a brochure site, then I would use a monitoring tool such as Hotjar or something like that to see if users are actually going to be clicking on those sidebars. So you could use some A/B testing and see if users are actually clicking on it, and then test it and see how it goes from then on. But I would say test. If you're wondering how you can balance enough links and not too many, again, test it, read through. If it doesn't make sense to you and it looks spammy and overwhelming and it doesn't make sense to have those links there, don't include them. At the end of the day, SEO is one part of a website, and it's one channel of marketing, and it helps developers out. So it might not be the be all and end all for that site in question, but it's always worth giving it a test and seeing how users interact with that content, and then testing it from an SEO point of view, because you can always use it as a case study and share it, and the rest of us will share it as well.
Yeah. No, that's a really good answer. We've had some really great questions there and answers to go with them. But we have come to the end now. So thank you to everyone for watching us and for all your questions. A special thank you to Natalie. I love the talk. I'm sure everyone else did. We've had great feedback there already. So thank you very much for that and for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming, everyone.
Yeah. The recording will be live straight after this, as soon as YouTube processes it. And as I mentioned, hopefully sort of in the next few days, we're going to be publishing Natalie's written guide as well. That'll go into a little bit more detail. So keep an eye out for that, and when you see it, please do share and link to it and all the usual things. On that note, could you please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, all the normal things, and obviously go and follow Natalie on Twitter as well, and make sure you catch her Brighton SEO Talk. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and good night.